Hey guys, Don here. Welcome to Podiatry Practice Mastery. I'm going to go over the $1,000,000 minute. These are the things that we use in our practice to get to the $1,000,000 mark and beyond. So today I wanted to go over what I did during my lunch. I always like to share kind of how I use my time. So today I talked to one of the new CEOs of a company called Alleviate. So Alleviate is something that's used as a self-grastening tool. So it's a tool that you can do kind of your own grafting on the bottom of the heel. They sold about 30,000 products, and what I found a little bit confusing, I tend to focus more on the back of the calf with foam rolling and morning stretches and night splints, and not as much on like self-grastening tools. And so we purchased these, and I just really haven't fit it into my protocol, and I'm not sure how essential it is. I think it might be something good prior to maybe seeing someone, as like they could sell it over the counter. I was telling the guy ultimately what they do is they wanted us to buy the Alleviate massage tool. It's like a grasping tool. You put it on the ground and you roll your foot on it. It also comes with a pair of compression socks, and it comes with almost like an ankle brace. So part of the challenge is I'm not usually using compression socks or the ankle brace, so you kind of have to pay for the whole thing. I think it'd be a little bit easier if it was only the Alleviate tool. But if you want to look up to it, you can look it up. You can look up Alleviate. I just kind of gave my feedback, and that's something that's kind of fun to do. Think about how you can incorporate new things into your practice. I think it could produce quite a bit. So, for example, his suggestion was, well, every patient that comes in on the first visit, doing like the Alleviate tool, some type of with or without like a foam roller, and if they don't get better after a certain amount of time, then go to the Shockwave or the traditional things that I've been doing. So that's the first thing. Second thing, I do have my numbers from February, so I always like to share. I had a pretty strong February with Shockwave, so really my largest procedure with Shockwave was EPAT. So I did 30 of those in February. Then the other things that were kind of high, orthotics, there were 11. I'd still like to do more orthotics. I did 2 ViaFlow, which is the amnio that's kind of no longer existent. So we have to find a replacement. I did 8 Swift. I did 3 fracture codes. And so those are kind of the higher levels. And so then February, the goal, once again, in the $1,000,000 minute is to get to 80,000 in production per month. And that's the way you get to the $1,000,000 mark. So I was at 96 for February, and I was at 84 for January. So a little bit low. A little bit low meaning, like I know it's at 80, but I would still like it to be a little bit higher. So 84 and then 96. So we'll see what March is coming up. So I'm recording today a Friday. So it's a Friday. This is a day that I see a lot of patients. I had 36 patients. I had 20 20-minute slots, but I think they were filled because I added some patients on. I'm not going to go over everything that was routine, just kind of the routine plus stuff. So the first half of the day is routine every 10 minutes with my nail tech that I've trained. So she is just doing the nails right now. She's doing a lot better at the real thick nails. She's been here about 3 months. It took her about 3 months to learn how to do the real thick ones. The thin ones are, of course, easier. And so let's go into this. So there was one patient that had a guy to get VNA set up, and she had an ulcer on the bottom, of course, on the bottom of her foot, but it was on the IPJ of the hallux. Because of this, and I needed to set up VNA, and she has Medicare. I did do the collagen kit. So the collagen kit was given to her for 15 days. And then I scheduled VNA. So if they have VNA, you can't give these collagen kits out. So I'm going to follow up with her in 3 months for routine, and then a couple weeks to look at the ulcers, make sure they're going in the right direction for this patient. Next patient that was of interest here in the morning was a 94-year-old, and this is kind of a sad case. There's a primary care. It's his mother. So I said hi to him. He was a longtime referring doctor. She's 94, she's got some dementia, and so she's going to have a hard time coming. So there are certain places where she's living and other people live, and there's podiatrists that go there. Despite that, they still want to come to see us, but I kind of recommended that she goes back to that facility. Next was a 76-year-old that I did a diabetic foot exam. So once again, I tend to do that the month before or the month after their birthdays, depending on when they come in. So I did that for the diagnosis of venous stasis. She has some venous stasis changes in the lower leg and edema. So that's kind of the diagnosis. You want to avoid the diabetes as the diagnosis, but you want to evaluate something else, kind of doing some other type of a physical exam finding. So that was the routine. There was a whole bunch of them, and then we get into the kind of the normal patients in the afternoon. Marjorie did a great job. So what happens with Marjorie is I'm tending to let her start. She introduces herself, does things, and I go in there and I do the calluses and I do the diabetic foot exams and other things like that. So that's how she is helping out. Eventually I'm going to try to schedule my carry flexes and my onifixes on days that she's going to be there so that she can do that as well. So the afternoon, the first patient was an orthotic patient. I did an x-ray, did an ultrasound. This patient had heel pain, but it's interesting. It's been there for a long time. It's not super duper painful. So I did an ultrasound, and the fascia looked a little bit thicker than the other side, but it wasn't huge. It was like I think it was 5 versus like 3.5, and I wasn't totally sold. It was a really bad case of plantar fasciitis, and I think it was mostly he needed an orthotic. So I scanned him for an orthotic. Next patient, this is a 61-year-old gentleman. Unfortunately, he's been dealing with some cancer, chemo, has diabetes and neuropathy, and we're doing the Qutenza. So this is Qutenza number 5 for him. Some people have asked me about my Qutenza kind of protocols. On the Podiatry Practice Mastery, you can get all my Qutenza notes. There should be like Qutenza resources. It's way in the bottom of the site. That's where I put all the resources. If you want that, you can get it there. If you don't see it, shoot me an email down at podiatrypracticemastery.com. Some people are concerned like what codes you use and things like that. It takes a lot of work for my staff to get these things approved, but once we got the thing rolling, it's working pretty well. So we do those every 3 months. So he told me he was feeling good for like 3 weeks afterwards, and he could walk actually barefoot, but otherwise the neuropathy was so bad he could hardly walk barefoot. Next patient was a 63-year-old new patient. She had hammer toes. She really just needed a routine. She asked me about orthotics, but when I went over the price, she was less interested, as a lot of us know that if you have any self-pay patients. Next patient was a 62-year-old. This is a female that I did Swift on, Swift number 2. I did 1 and 2, and now she came back for the third one, and she is totally better. She was so psyched. I have pictures before, and I did a little video of her. So this is a video that I'm going to use on my YouTube, but it's also one that you can put on like your Swift page. So I always like to do that. If a patient has a good result, I shoot a quick little video. It automatically adds like subtitles to it. It's called Sub Magic. That's the one that I use for that. Next patient was a 63-year-old with bilateral foot ulcers. I've been seeing her monthly. She was previously on doxycycline for cellulitis, and she's better now. I ordered ABIs to evaluate her circulation at a local hospital, and I'm going to see her back in 2 weeks because of the possible cellulitis. Next patient was a 59-year-old. This guy, he had a pretty bad fracture of the second metatarsal. He dropped a pipe. Now, he delivers things gets things off shelves and like probably like stocking and things like that and taking things off. And he dropped this, unfortunately, on his foot. Has a lot of swelling, has a fracture there. It's slightly laterally displaced and shortened. There's a little bit of a prominence on the dorsal aspect, and it's kind of dorsally elevated. But I think it's going to heal just fine without fixing it primarily. It's in good position. And I talked to him about the options of fixing it or just putting him in a walking boot. He preferred the walking boot. The problem is it's his right foot, and I think we all kind of struggle with this. This guy really needs to work, and it's funny. He talked about he could do short-term disability, but the problem is he gets like 15 hours or 12 hours of overtime, and he really depends on that. So this is a struggle for him. So his right foot, he can't really drive. He probably will drive anyway, and I'm not sure if he'll be able to work with that walking boot. So it's kind of a situation. You feel for these patients. Next patient was a 68-year-old gentleman. He has bilateral, really thick toenails. They were not fungal. They were mostly traumatized. And he came back because his wife wanted him to remove them. So we avulsed them and did a matrixectomy on both great toenails. Next patient was Shockwave number 5 out of 6. This patient, she's doing much better. She's Shockwave number 5. She had an amnio after the third one. Just really pleased with the results. I think by the next time she's going to be much better. I think as we're kind of looking at how many do you do? 3? Do you 6? I like the idea of 6 mostly because by the 5th or 6th time they're already getting better, and I think you have credibility and buy-in many times when we're doing it and you're stopping at the third, you're not really seeing the improvement at that time. So some people would even propose, which I can understand why, if they're still one, only do 3, you would do it every 2 weeks. And then you would start seeing the improvement by the third one, so there's a little bit of buy-in. But anyway, that's just kind of the conversation in my head for these patients. Next patient was a 60-year-old. This is a guy that's preparing for a marathon, and I did a shockwave last Friday, and he did a long run, I think probably 18 miles on Saturday, and he said he was like totally pain-free in his Achilles. He has a little thickening in his Achilles, and I think it's because the shockwave increases the flexibility of the tissue, and I think it certainly is helping because he's on shockwave number 6. Now, he has this marathon coming up on the 22nd of April, so I am going to do it like 3 days before. That'll be the Friday. I'm going to be doing shockwave on him because I think there is some almost like doping effect where it'll take away any pain that he has and make the tissue more flexible and feel better. So I'm not doing this as illegal, but I'm just doing it. Next patient was a 75-year-old that has a wart, and I was treating it with cantharidin. And then the final patient of the day was an ulcer that was healing up. She is a patient that had an amputation on her 4th toe because of her neuropathy. She has a new ulcer that's being treated, and she's going to be in kind of special shoes to help with that. So kind of a challenging day with some of these patients. The more stressful one for me today was this gentleman. He's got bilateral Charcot and bilateral ulcers that I'm kind of treating the ulcers. He has a little bit of an ulcer right now. Everything's getting better, but that's kind of the way the day went. Also, I had a little talk recently. I think I was telling you about meeting with the Curomedics people. So everyone always asks me this. I might do a separate post on this, but we're considering getting rid of the Softwave and getting another Focused. And I want to explain kind of the rationale we're using. Okay, so when we talk to them in terms of cost, so the Storts device, which is a Focused Shockwave, it really costs about $52,000. Okay, the Focused Shockwave. So you have to exchange the coil every 2 million pulses. So this is the main difference. So in total, it'll be $55,000, and so that's kind of the issue with that. Now, if you go to the Softwave, which we were thinking of, instead of $55,000 for 2 million pulses, it is $75,000. And then the problem is the spark change is every 250,000. So in 2 million, since it's $2,000 to refurbish that and the thing shuts off, so you have to pay $16,000 in maintenance costs. So to reach the 2 million mark. So the main difference, I think, between the Storts and the Softwave is really the durability of it, the durability of the device. And also the less maintenance. I think they make these Storts devices like workhorses, right? You just use them. There's never any problems. They very rarely break. And so I think that's kind of a reason up on Storts on this versus this other Softwave. So that's my opinion, just kind of explaining why we chose and why we're thinking about going towards another Focused Shockwave. Now, they did try to get us into the EMTT, which is a new kind of thing that it's like pulse energy, and they say it's better for like arthritis. Some doctors are using it as a standalone, kind of the same way people would use MLS laser as a standalone for people pay for like 6 or 10 treatments, and it helps with arthritis and other things like that. I can see that. I think it might be beneficial, but the thing is I have like 3 other doctors that I need to convince to use EMTT because like once again for me, I would buy everything probably. But I have checks and balances in the office to buying that. So they did give us a quote for the EMTT as well. So the EMTT is about $40,000. So how much you can bring in from that? You might be able to bring in a lot. I'm not really sure. If anyone loves EMT, I'd like to know your feedback on these things. Like if you do things similar ways, yes, let me know. If you don't, like what you do different so I can improve. And what your thoughts are on for the Shockwave, and if you're using EMT and you love it, please let me know. Once again, I feel like this Practice Mastery Podiatry Management Minute is increasing, and I'd love to know, if you're liking it, what are the things I can include, what things you disagree about it, so I can have more fodder for these things. Okay, have a great day, guys.